Hello and welcome everyone to a lovely Friday. Just a few days left till election. And, well, we have some more news about the two men arrested after van filled with explosives is discovered in Philadelphia. Now, my initial thoughts on this were that, oh my God, they're trying to blow up stuff, they're gonna drive that van into like the police station or something like that, which didn't end up being the case. Once some more information was brought forward, and I thought I'd highlight that. So, as sad as it sounds, the explosives in the van were not as malicious as we thought. It's actually good news, and that's terrifying. That explosives in a van is good news. Well, not that they're in there, that is good news, but what they were going to be used for. All right, two men in Philadelphia were charged on Tuesday with possessing explosives that were found in a van in the heart of the city, prosecutors said. Brian Lorre and Eric Mora are accused of transporting a quarter or half sticks of dynamite, a upheld propane tank torch, and other tools in the van. They were ditched near Logan Circle on Wednesday night, according to Pennsylvania Attorney General's office. Authorities said the contents found inside the van are commonly used to steal from ATM machines. There we go. That's the thing. So, as scary as it was that was found, and that we thought, wow, these people are going to blow up a bunch of stuff, catch everything on fire. So the general consensus was the van was going to be driven into a police station or wherever, exploded, and propane tanks would cause a fire. Even if you didn't have enough explosives to destroy the building with just a few sticks of dynamite, there was enough there with fire and shrapnel and everything else to cause significant enough damage to tear down the building in the end. So, at least it's not that. Most likely these were just criminals looking to steal entire ATMs filled with money. Over the last 4 days, Philadelphia has seen at least 30 such crimes, prosecutors said. Police first noticed the van, which was parked in a hotel parking lot with about a dozen others, when they reported to a commercial burglary alarm earlier that night. Authorities. The fleet of vans started to leave once police arrived, leading to the pursuit of some of the vehicles. Officers arrested Laura and Maury after they pulled over to remove tape that had been concealing the license plate. Prosecutors said the two men were charged with possession of weapons of mass destruction, conspiracy, and risk of catastrophe. The burst came as the city faced unruly protests over the police killing of Walter Wallace Jr. Alright, so that's the end result of that. I thought everyone would like to know that it wasn't the great, it wasn't another Oklahoma City or anything like that, if you're old enough to remember that catastrophe that was. It is just people taking advantage of the fact that the police are distracted by the riots and everything else, trying to restore order. They're just taking advantage of that by ripping out and cutting free ATMs so they can steal the money out of it. It's just purely theft. Same thing, reason why Walmart's looted and all this other stuff. This is not protest, folks. This is not trying to get to some great end goal. It is strictly just money grabbing. All right. Now, I don't doubt that the fact that there are some protesters there who are there to do the actual protesting. And in all honesty, I think in Philadelphia, especially more so than other places, not that any of it's justifiable, but Philadelphia is, I think the protesters there are actually there to protest things. And then there's other folks who just take advantage of it. And that has been an ongoing theme. And it's I'm not even claiming that Antifa has much to do with the actual rioting. I think people just need stuff, and that state has been locked down so hard. And I'm not justifying looting. It's not okay. I'm saying that these people are they're out of work, and they're just tired of it. It is honest to God anger and frustration and rage, and they just start. They have several studies showing that when people are in a mob and they can't be identified individually, that they'll do terrible things. And I was actually having a discussion last night where Unfortunately, I believe most of everything that's going on has to do with my generation, and the generation we produced after us. The millennials, now that we have kids, well, so Generation X is a hardworking generation, don't get me wrong. However, they are a generation that came after some serious discipline issues. Basically, they rebelled against, like spanking, and that was, that was their generation's big thing. Spanking and, all this stuff like that, for as far as parenting goes. And it created a lot of people who don't understand, in general, right from wrong. And we had it to a small degree, but we never, we grew up in an era where things weren't so easy. Not that it was that hard, but we grew up in an era where things were a little more difficult. It was a little bit harder to make it in the world. Whereas now, everybody wants to give you everything. So what we've created is, the millennials, myself included, we've created these individuals who have zero discipline. We had small amounts because we had grandparents who would, kind of correct and discipline in a small way. That's the reason why I'm who I am. I love my mother, but she never really disciplined me, but she never really had to either. I had a grandfather who was a very strict individual, and he would dull that out every summer. So I got a healthy dose of it every year. And not only that, their style of discipline was a little bit different in my family. Sarcasm was used to make you feel like an idiot. When you do something dumb, instead of beating you up, or, taking you to the bathroom and spanking you or anything like that, they would just insult you. No, they weren't doing it maliciously. They were doing it, in all honesty, out of a place of goodness. As bad as that sounds, it was never intended to be this evil thing. They were just like, hey, don't be dumb, And that's kind of how my life is. In general, don't be stupid and everything will be all right in the end. What's going on in Philadelphia and all these places is a whole lot of stupid. Because not everybody had that when they were growing up. I just had a certain way of growing up. And I think it has a lot to do with your own personal proclivities. My son is very similar to me in the fact that he doesn't really rebel. I rebelled a little bit, but I rebelled in a safe way because I didn't want to get caught. And nowadays, people get caught all the time, and there's still no disciplinary issue. Nothing happens. Okay? So, in the end, with no repercussions, truly no repercussions, they just keep doing it because they're like, well, I guess I can do this. And I think that's where the true issue lies with all of this that's going on. With the riot, specifically with the looting stuff. The other stuff, the police stuff and things like that, I wholeheartedly believe that there needs to be reform in the police department. And I don't know where I saw, or where I was listening to this at, or where I read it. I'm not sure which it is, but somebody was saying something about, they want, like, hey, take this murder here, that this is all these riots are about. Kenneth, or whatever his name is, Walter Wallace. His death came, and he was mentally ill, right? He had a mental issue. And it's okay to have mental issues. There are many people who do. And we can't really blame him for that. We can blame those around him for allowing it to happen a little bit. And then people are like, well, if they sent a social worker or a psychiatrist out there instead of the police, things might have been, handled differently. Or, on the flip side, a public health official gets stabbed in the face, and dies. However, I think we increased the funding. And what I mean by that is, so you think it would be a good idea to have trained professionals in mental health and, basically healthcare workers out with cops. I am actually okay with that. I don't find that all that unpleasant of an idea. I do find it slightly worrisome, but if you send out a cop and a healthcare professional, maybe we find our solution in the middle. Maybe we don't defund the police, but we increase funding, which, unfortunately, as bad as it sounds, it means more taxes, folks. That's life, sometimes. When you have an obviously broken or misused system, you may find that increasing funding for training, there's many different avenues you can take, right? But I actually like the idea that, you send out one of each. One, like, instead of two cops in a car, you have a cop and mental health care individual. And this will give a balance to what is going on. One, the mental health care individual must have a taser and some other, he doesn't have to have a gun. The cop must have a gun, due to situation. And that doesn't mean like, there's a robbery in place, send out the cops, and 50 social workers and 50 cops show up. No. You remove the social workers at that point. Like, depending on the situation, obviously. But trolling around town, going through place to place, the regular patrols and stuff like that, sure. You have both in the car. Responding to a call where anybody says anything like that, sure, you have them both in the car. I think it's a fairly good idea. But to defund the police, no, we've already seen what has happened. You get the quote-unquote blue flu and all this stuff like that, because they can't technically strike. Cops can't, due to the fact that they're obligated to protect and serve. They've taken an oath, so they cannot do that. But yeah, I think that's a wholehearted way to do that. I do like the fact that I like the fact that it wasn't somebody gone completely off the rails who's going to blow stuff up. It is sad that people are robbing ATMs just because there's a chance to. It's stupid, And people are like, oh, it's a victimless crime and yada yada yada. It's all covered. Yeah, guess what? That comes from somewhere. That comes from your interest rates. That comes from that comes from your insurance policies. There is no such thing as a victimless crime, folks. It doesn't happen. When person B robs person C, and everything they robbed is 100% covered by insurance, well, guess what? They can't expect person C to pay for all of the insurance hike, to recover the money. They're businesses. Insurance companies are businesses. They must run at a profit. So they then raise small amounts on each individual person for their rates. Everybody's rates goes up just a little bit, so it's almost like a tax. Every time you rob a store that is covered by insurance, every bit of that is taken out of everybody else who's underneath that place's policy. It's just how it works, people. There's no free lunch in the world, and there's no victimless crime. So that's what I have to say about that. We're going to move on to the next one, which is a bit of a close to my heart thing, because I would have died in this particular case. So, 3 Marines' children given flu shots at school without parental consent. All right, there's a reason why we give parental consent. This just goes through. Father said the school nurse apologizes to him for the mishap on October, same as his daughter received the flu shot. Stanford superintendent of schools acknowledged the issue, but told the newspaper and investigators determined that only 2 students were inappropriately vaccinated. Obviously, we are disappointed that this happened. We're going to use the opportunity to review our protocols to see if any changes need to take place. Yada, yada, yada. This is going to be a bit of a rant here on this one. All right, 3 Marine, Maine. Sorry, I keep saying Marine. 3 Maine children. If my son is given a flu shot inappropriately like that, there is a severe chance that he will have a massive anaphylactic shock or anaphylactic reaction and die from it. If I get a flu shot, that's exactly what happened to me. It's exactly what happened to me when I was in basic training. I was given a flu shot. First flu shot I'd ever had in my life. I was a young idiot. Didn't really know why my mother never gave me a flu shot. Didn't ask, didn't even know, right? So I'm allergic to eggs. All right, I could always eat eggs. You know, they give me a bit of an upset stomach. I didn't really care for them. It's just, but when your body is introduced to a massive dose to a different area that it's not used to, you can have severe reactions to this. So I was given a flu shot. I passed out and swelled up and ended up in the 319th for a day or so, or 2 or 3 days. And then I went back to the dorm. And yeah, so if this happens, this can't be done. You cannot give a flu shot, any medical treatment to a kid at a school. This has to be done. Over with. Never again. You cannot do this at school. This never should have been introduced at a school, because this is giving a child who is probably 5 or 6 or 7, right? You're giving them the flu shot in the school where they have no real idea, like they don't know what's going on. They don't know whether or not, like they're like, oh, the nurse, the lovely, nice lady nurse who every once in a while when I'm not feeling like I want to be at school, I pretend to be sick. She lets me sit here for 30, 45 minutes. I just need to cool down. And then I go back to class, right? I call my mom. No, I'll see what happens. Okay. And they sit in there for a little while. You talk to the nice lady, you know, or, you know, depending on how old you are. If you're in like high school or something, you got a cute nurse that, you know, that's your school. Not the, you know, then you go there, you be a horny teenager. That's life. But in this case, you know, they did something that could have very well, and now it didn't end in that, but it could have very well ended in the death of one of those children, or at least, you know, maybe a tracheotomy. You know, you don't know what's going to happen. That's why you have to have parental consent to do this. This, again, never, ever, ever should have been something implemented during a school time at all. It should not have happened. In no way, shape, or form should they have even allowed it in the school. This is something you do with your parent, by your parent, not at a school. Now I understand that like Maine was like, I went through the like, why did Maine allow this? Like they put it forth and, you know, voted on it and stuff like that. Like, oh yeah, you know, the idea of what they did isn't terrible. Like if you think about it in a convenience factor, it's not that bad, right? But if you look at it in the broader scope of things, pull yourself out of your own little bubble of like, we're trying to help kids and families, you know, yada yada yada. There's a reason why it was never done before, or why it shouldn't have been done. There are many cases of it, and there's many other states that do this as well, and it needs to be done away with. This is just one time that it accidentally happened, right? Like, oh well, we'll always be safe. No, it's gonna happen again, and you're gonna do it to the wrong kid, and you're gonna kill a 12-year-old because you're stupid, or because their name got mixed up. The kid's not gonna argue with the teacher when he tells them to go to the nurse's office. It's not, you know, you don't argue with the teachers. That's what they're taught. You don't argue with the teachers, you know, without, you know, in the realm of legal things, right? And there's lots of crazy stuff out there in the world I'm not going to get into. But, and this has nothing to do with the whole anti-vax thing. I'm not an anti-vaxxer or anything like that. I believe vaccines are a very good thing as long as they're done safely and correctly. This is not that. You cannot expect a school filled with, you know, 600 kids to get it right that often. I mean, you're probably looking at a 1 or 2% margin of error when it comes to that. That's 2 or 3 kids that got a flu shot that weren't supposed to. You know, and it can also be that, you know, like, oh, the parents said, oh no, I don't need the flu shot. We already took them in. We got it done. And there's complications to that. You know, the flu shot being an exemption. This is a gateway into vaccinating all kids without parental consent. This takes me back to the cases in California where the parents are sued by teachers and things like that for not allowing their 12-year-old to go through gender reassignment. No, you do not have the right to tell a person what is best for their child. I'm the parent, you are the teacher. I understand you spend a lot of time with them. I understand you care about their feelings. I have nothing against teachers, except for the ones who don't know how to marshal. That drives me up the wall. I've done a rant on that before, I think. But yeah, learn how to properly marshal, people. Putting your arm in a circle does not mean go forward. That means go around. For the love of God, learn how to do it. This comes from somebody who, 10 years in the military, I marshaled a lot of aircraft. But I went around in circles 4 times, and the lady was getting very confused, and I got out of the car, and I started yelling at her because that's insanity. Like, if you don't know how to do something, don't try to do it. Anyway, sorry, digress. But it's along the same lines. You don't know how to do this thing properly, don't do it. Okay? I understand the premise. You're trying to help people out. You're trying to, but, yeah. One kid, like I said, one of those kids may have already had the vaccine. There could have been a complication due to that. Kid gets extra sick. The flu vaccine is not a true vaccine, not in the greatest sense. That's why they call it a flu shot. They don't actually call it a vaccine because it's not one. It's a general estimate of the viruses that will be around this year. I think it was in 2018 or 2017, one of those 2 years, where they got the estimates wrong, and I think we got up to like 134,000 people dead from the flu, right? A lot of people die from the flu every year. It's not as, I'm not saying it's not as bad as the coronavirus. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not going down that route. The coronavirus is more contagious and more deadly than the flu virus, right? But in all honesty, the flu would probably be worse if we didn't have the flu shot, because it actually serves a great purpose. I have no problem with people getting the flu shot who can do it, right? There's something called herd immunity. Herd immunity is achieved when enough people have antibodies and can fight the virus against, or a greater number than the people who don't have or who haven't contracted the virus, things like that. This is how we used to do the chicken pox. We would get enough kids in the class, we'd get everybody, nice and huddled together, and everybody would have chicken pox at a young age when it was safe. Okay? And then they would itch for a few days, you get a few scars, life would continue. Now we have the vaccine, which I don't like. So, again, the chickenpox vaccine is not an actual vaccine. It should be more related to the flu shot. It is a chickenpox shot. It gives you immunity to the most common variants of chickenpox in your area. I saw a person when I was in the military who got a version of the chickenpox from overseas that he had no immunity to, and he had a exceedingly severe reaction due to the fact that his body was confused. Because he had never, this is kids below my age. I think I was already a senior airman or sergeant by this point. And yeah, it did not go well. The individual had to be relieved from the Air Force. He got severe scarring, lung problems, all sorts of crazy stuff happened. And it was, in fact, due to he had the vaccine versus actually having chickenpox. There is a difference in the immunity. If you have the actual disease, you have a greater immunity to it than if you don't. If you just get the shot. There's also a greater risk to what is it? Scabies, I believe, is what it's called. It's like a secondary function. People get it a lot of times for having had the it's something that happens. Because once you have chickenpox, you always technically have chickenpox. You are then just a carrier once you defeat it. It never truly goes away. And then people get, I think they call it scabies, where you get like these weird scaly growths on you that hurt and itch just like chickenpox. But the vaccine, now, from my understanding, they have changed the formula of the vaccine since then, and this is not the case anymore. I'm not an expert. Don't represent me that way. But so that part of it, I guess, has gone down severely. But it used to be that you would basically, if you were given the shot, in 5 to 10 years, you got it. You had scabies, and that doesn't go away. That's permanent. That is always there. That is treatment only. You always have it, and it always comes back, almost like mouth herpes, whatever, cold sores, quote unquote. You got herpes on your face. Gross. Yeah, I just wanted to make a point about that. I have no problem about vaccines. I do have a problem with people doing it in schools where children, they cannot make these decisions, nor can they, will they ever argue should there be a mistake made. You know, if you have Kyle Walker and Walker Kyle in the same class, and I'm just using, those are just two names I'm throwing out there. Those aren't real people. And those two names get mixed up, then the kid who was supposed to get the flu shot doesn't, and the kid who's not supposed to get it because of allergies or he'd already had it or whatever. That's how this stuff happens. It's just names. I mean, they're teachers. They have 40 kids in each class. You know, they cannot keep up with all their flu recommendations. We don't need to overtax them as it is. It needs to stop. Maine needs to shut it down. All the other states need to shut it down. Now, I do believe in giving out certain kinds of vaccines, this being one of them. There's no reason why I should have to go and pay for it. First of all, it's like mandatory 90% of the time. If the federal government's going to make something mandatory, you must give it to me. I will not pay for it. It's just how it is. I'm not going to pay for something that is mandatory. All right? People are like, well, you pay for a driver's license. Yeah, but it's not mandatory. I can go get an ID for, I think, if I'm not mistaken, you can get the printed one for free. And then if you want the plastic one, it costs you money. Right? That's a difference. Like, you can get an ID for free. But you pay for passports. Those aren't, again, if I don't ever intend to leave the United States, it's not required. If I don't ever, well, now you have the smart ID. Ugh. I got like 5 different kinds of IDs on me at all times now. It's frustrating. Or technically, should have 5 different kinds of IDs on me when I get on a plane. So, you know, life, all that fun stuff. But all right, guys, I'm gonna leave you with this for today. We will be on tonight. We're gonna have another Kegalosaurus joint stream for Among Us again. It'll be a lot of fun. So join us then. It's quite lively, and it's only talking, so you shouldn't see much in the way of typing. It's all people we know. Fair warning on that, though. They're a bunch of kids, you know, people I know from my previous jobs, things like that. You know, they get a little rowdy. But there's some fun people. We'll have Bex, myself, Ben, and Nate. We'll all be playing it. So, all right, guys. See you all next time. Enjoy the news. Remember to always have fun. And above all, remember to like, share, subscribe. And above all else, have a good day. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you next time.